Alrighty, let's just before it took me 20 minutes to get the frickin' camera to work for me. Um, uh, yeah, so we'll see how much longer we can keep this camera working for me. I don't know why. It's probably not the camera, probably one of the ports on the side of the laptop. But for whatever reason, the combination of this computer and this camera don't seem to like each other right now. It may have been in the last update to the Windows operating system. I don't know, but I don't want to keep fighting with it. If it gives me trouble next time, I'm going to load it onto the laptop instead. I was in a better mood when I was getting ready to start this, but 20 minutes of messing around with a camera and a computer will do that, I guess. So, where were we? What was I doing? I can't remember anymore. I got too wound up. All right. So, looking at the games that I've been working on so far was the Space Cadet, in which you play a student at the Rocketeer Academy number 22 at Lagrange Point 3, otherwise known as Razzle, because it's RA, Rocket Academy, 22, which is the Z's, and then Lagrange L, and then 3 would be the E. So it's Razzle. And so when you do something dazzling, you give them the old razzle dazzle. I love me some good wordplay. All right, so I'm working on that story a little bit, having some fun with that, tweaking it a little. It's one of those things. It's like when I got it started, I'm like, okay, well, it's just the story of a choose your own adventure story, and then I went, I'll set it in the Captain Rita Raygun's universe, and then I said, okay, so I need to establish some things about the universe there while I'm playing with that, and made it way more complicated than it needs to be. Just the way I like to do things, I guess. So I was looking at the video audio channel game, which is the using left and right speaker for your choices and giving video puzzles. Not really puzzles in this case. Like the first simple one should be something along the lines of a combination of wins and fails, and you have to decide which one it is. And I'll probably do like I was contemplating it since yesterday, and the idea of calling it 10 with Ken. I'm debating on how much I want to use that term, because like a 10 with Ken for a specific set of puzzle styles, I think is appropriate. If I use them for all of them, I'm not sure if it's as appropriate. So like the audio trivia game could be a 10 with Ken. The video trivia could be a 10 with Ken. The video multiple choice could be a 10 with Ken. I can't use that for things like the Space Cadet or Captain Cosmos situation. I don't want to do that. But part of the reason it appealed to me to do the 10 with Ken is it gives me a nice round number to head for. When you do search features on YouTube, it's top 10 reasons why, top 10 fails, top 10 wins, or things like that. Like top 10 is an easy target to aim for, and it hits a wider audience because people will search for that term. So putting in something like top 10 with Ken could work, but it's not my actual. My name is Ken. My actual name is not what I'm going to end up using, though. I will use Ken, but I think I want to make a character for myself because it helps me a little bit, because I'm awkward even in front of the camera. I get rambly and I'm uncomfortable sometimes talking a little bit too much about myself. But if I build myself a character, I can just be that character and not worry about it too much. But on top of that, I want to see if I can name myself as the host of this trivia program, like a Pat Sajak or Steve Harvey's Family Feud kind of thing, and be like the host. And I want to see if I can name the host character that I play as Ken Ulysses DeWitt. And part of the reason for that is if you just shorten Ulysses in the middle to a U, it's can you do it? So, can you solve these? But even better, awarding a prize at the end of every episode of a say a badge or a coin and calling it the Do It To It. And that's fun because the To It will be like a coin or a badge in the shape of a circle, and it's for when you need to get around to it. So it's wordplay all over the place. And I'm having an inordinate amount of fun imagining this. So I was having a little bit of fun with that. So 10 with Ken for the multiple choice robot trivia. So I may have to, when I build these sorts of trivia games, I may have to, in parentheses, delineate whether this is an audio game, a multiple choice game, or a win or fail. I was contemplating some of that last night, actually, and one of the things I got to thinking of is I wonder if there's a way I can rework some of the true or false binary answer or even some of the multiple choice answer question styles and see if I can build. Yeah, if you're not a Facebook user a lot, there are a lot of my friends who keep posting these stupid quizzes. Which Harry Potter character are you? Or, which Star Wars character are you? And you go in and you answer multiple questions. And it's like you go in, and that might work for a multiple choice style of game, where it's like you go in and first question, do you like meat or not? And if not, you go to this direction. If you do, you go this direction. But you can also have questions along the lines of, are you a healer, a fighter, a sneaky person, or a and just basic D&D classes kind of archetypes. And based off of their choices on that level, connected with their choices on the first level, being able to stack the results to lead to a certain number of end choices. I know people play those games. I know they play them all over Facebook and social media. They're out there, and it's sort of like an impulse thing for some people to do. Like if they're a Harry Potter fan, of course they just want to see what the test says they are as a character. And I think that could be a fun thing to construct. So I'm debating whether or not I need to sit down and build up a formula for that sort of format. Because it might be a little tricky to build one editing wise, because you're doing a multi-tier, multiple choice kind of puzzle. But I think in the long run, it'll be enjoyed by most people who have the chance at it. So I might end up doing that. But I'll put that sort of on the back burner as another project to do at another point. I still got a load of things I need to take care of with these guys. So the audio trivia that I was thinking of playing with, that has to be a 2-choice at every trivia question. And my impulse is to go with something scientific or historical, like U.S. history or some basic scientific facts. If you drop a feather and a lead weight in a vacuum, which will hit the ground first? But that would be a trick, because usually with that kind of thing, it's a three option question: the feather, the lead weight, and then the secret hidden third option is both. And I think it would be unfair to load a trick question into that for that one. So I really need to find puzzles or questions that really have a one or the other kind of question or answer sequence. But doing it as like a quiz show. And I could do something like a Family Feud if I did a multiple choice style video, but audio trivia has to be one right answer and one wrong answer for every question that you ask. There should be 10 questions if I'm going to do 10 with Ken. So like I'm trying to figure out what to do for that. And like the easy answer would be to, you know, ask questions about all the other videos that I've made. You know, just to, you know, have you seen my other videos? If not, then you won't be able to get as many of these right as possible. But that seems cheap. That's not what I want to do. I want to make something that would be fun to do. And in the end, I want to be able to sum it up with something to the effect of, you know, now send this to one of your friends or send this to 3 of your friends and see if you're better than they are at answering these questions. That's the real fun of this, is seeing how you compare to your friends and playing it with friends and sharing it with friends. And that's part of the appeal of this puzzle, I think. Maybe that's just the way I would do it. I don't know if other people would play it that way, but so I feel like I could look at the categories of my usual content where like get a popular book and ask trivia questions about that book. I could do movies. Movies might be easier to do, just because not as many people are into reading, unfortunately. Board games. I could do, you know, I could probably do one for each of the categories. Board games. Product and service might be a little tricky. Maybe like trivia about websites that a lot of people use, or commercially available products like Kleenex or Q-tips or things like that. And like eventually it would be fun to do something like what do you call it, like old wives' tale, whether or not milk is a good source of calcium compared to fruits or vegetables. Like I'm pretty sure orange juice has more available calcium content than a glass of milk, which seems counterintuitive. And that would be a fun quiz to, you know, set somebody through. But so that would be something like food, music, art, video games. So video games and movies would probably be one of the first easiest categories to do. So I could go looking to see what the biggest movies recently are and then ask trivia about them. That would be fairly easy to do. I think I should probably just knock one of those out. I could probably do video games and board games after that. Like the history of Monopoly, get some of those kinds of trivia questions in there. And then, so that could be easily my audio trivia. And I'm thinking once I get that system worked out and figured out well enough, either in the 2-channel or when I build the audio device that can split it into 4 to 6 channels. If I do that, I might turn that category of content over into, I might still upload them as YouTube videos, but I think I might switch over to doing like a podcast with that. Just because it doesn't need a video component to play it that way. And so that could be the audio trivia. I have the robot trivia and then the what happens next style video audio challenge. And then the Space Cadet, the dice. So I think I've got everything I need to do worked out for each one of them. If only I didn't have to do, work when I'm not working on these projects, and if I didn't have to keep trying to sell off some old things to make a little extra money to cover my costs at the end of the month here. It's sort of starting to chew on me a little bit. It's gobbling my time and my energy, because I'd love to put more time into this. And I think my goal here is to have one of each of these types of categories of content done. So video, audio channel, I got to find out what to call those. So the robot trivia, the audio trivia, and the win or lose video challenge. And potentially the which character are you most like. So I will add that into the categories. Because I think that's something that could actually do really well if I get the system worked out for that. It's going to be a lot harder than the rest of the choose your own adventure styles, because it's every single one is going to be a branching option that spreads you out a little bit further. And Captain Cosmos as the Choose Your Own Adventure series that I could work on a little bit more. That one's also going to be a little difficult, but I actually was thinking about that a little bit earlier today and doing some planning, and I did a little research on that. And I feel a little guilty whenever I do that, because instead of recording anything or scripting out some additional parts to add to it, it just means that I'm sitting there researching things, and I always feel like I'm not getting what I need to get done, because I'm researching some new quirk I've added to a thing that could have just been done by now. But I was thinking, the current format that I'm using as my basis for this, Captain Cosmos multi-choice role-playing adventure, not like the Phaeton Noir, where that was just a choose-your-own-adventure story. The role-playing game involves you encounter a villain. You look at your character sheet to see how many hit points you have left. Roll a die and see if you hit. And if you're higher than they are, you hit them. If they're higher than you are, they hit you. And you take a certain number of points of damage. If you survive this combat, go here. If you're injured but you won, go here. If you're uninjured and you make it, go here. And that's the multiple choice gameplay happening, but the multiple choices are based off of the role-playing mechanic of dice rolling and combat systems. So that's one of the ways to do some of that thing. But when doing the videos for those, it's in the role-playing game environment, that's usually called theater of the mind, where it's me sitting at a table with a Dungeon Master's screen, and I have my own dice behind it and my charts of data that let me decide how the circumstances of the situation are going to go. And I can just sit there and read off what I'm thinking the next part of the story is, and what the characters have to do to make their choices. and it's always me talking to the player. But I was thinking about some of the other types of tabletop role-playing games that people play, and it might be kind of fun to build. I mean, again, it's a layer of complication that I'll get to at another point. I don't think I can do it in any reasonable amount of time to do anything this year. But build sets. So if I'm going to do a fantasy setting, I could do an outdoor table set that I move. You ever see those old little card punch outs with a printing of the character's front on one side and the character's back on another side, and you put them in little stands and you move them around on a board? And you can do a printed board or a printed mat that I could use tiles and make inside or outside patterns to use as the floor design, and then make printed wall designs on more of those stands and set them up in certain positions, and just use that for making sets for telling all these types of stories. So like the Faytown Noir, I could have a little printout of each of the main characters, and I could have some generic building structure printouts that I can set up. And so when I'm narrating a scene, I can set it up and talk over the scene, and the characters don't necessarily move other than being in that situation where you see their positioning and everything. And occasionally, if I really wanted to, I could set hints and clues in the background. It would be kind of obvious if everything in the background were like a printed out design, and then weirdly there's this oddly added printed item, like one of those cornucopia horns hanging on the wall that's not printed as part of the wall. And it's like, that must be important to some part of the story. So I'll have to figure out some of the little quirks and mechanics that I might end up using for that. But I do like the idea of being able to build tabletop set and character pieces to help tell a story. Because at that point, I don't have to draw or animate every frame or do a slideshow that way. It's a little bit more of just setting the set the camera up, and narrate over top of it. And it's not always looking at my face, which I don't think that's a particularly desirable thing when playing a game that you're going to try to imagine another setting. Being able to do something a little bit different, give it a little bit of a sense of the environment. And I may still end up seeing if I can either commission or do my own cover art for each of the episodes, sort of like a book cover. Because like the cover on this book, that explains it shows you a little something, a teaser from inside the story, and it shows you one of the characters, or two of the characters in this case, and sets up some sort of like sense or feel of what the story is going to be like. And it'd be nice to be able to do that. It's not going to happen anytime this week, and it's not going to happen anytime in probably the next month, because I just don't think I have the time to do some of that stuff. But I do think at some point I would like to expand my abilities into that realm of doing book cover starter pieces and maybe sets and props. So that's just something that was occurring to me that would add value to what I'm doing, I think. So other than that, I think I've figured out all of the pieces that I need to assemble in the next few days. Today is Thursday. I still have to update the taste test video, and tomorrow is going to be I did the taste test itself. I need to do the prompts for the taste test, and then I need to do a product or service, which I think I have one already recorded. I feel like I'm chasing everything right now, and I know we're getting into the part of the year where it gets worse for me. It feels like every time we hit October through mid-December, I'm like, I want to work on this project, but everything goes wrong. Everything needs my attention. I need to work on this. I need to do that. I need to pick up extra work to get a little extra funding to carry me through into the winter. I got to do this. I got to do that. And like for the last 2 or 3 years of National Novel Writing Month, I've gotten very little, if any, writing done because just life says, no, you don't have a single day this month that we're going to let you do any of that. And so I worry that we're about to hit into that territory again, and I'm going to drop my ability to do much of anything. Because I have some very interesting projects that I want to do over the next few months. It's going to be a slight shift from what I usually do. I think I was talking a little bit about it yesterday. Where's the file for it? So what I'm looking to do, so October, I will do a short story every day for the month for the daytime videos. And then for the project videos, I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do for the food items and the board game item. The product development, I think I'm going to do the audio splitter so that I can get 4 channels for an audio game. I may just experiment to see if I can do that. And if I can, maybe sell the plans or, manufacture some simple ones to start with and sell them online. There's not going to be a huge demand for that unless other people start producing 4-channel audio games. But that's okay. And so I have those 4 categories of projects for October. November is, I think I didn't tell you about one of the ones in October, but November is writing excerpts. So talking about what I'm writing that week, because that's just going to be a big focus. The starting out of the weight training and the ending of the protein diet, and then more YouTube video games, which is what we've been doing right now. Yes, and actually that's one of the 8-track players is actually one of the inspirations for way back in, I want to say it was the 70s, early 80s, there was a toy called 2XL. And it was this boxy thing that you plug in and you push an 8-track tape into, and it would ask you a riddle or a puzzle or a trivia thing, and you push a button and it switches like an 8-track to a different channel and a different track, and it gets you the ability to play those games. Half of me wants to track down a bunch of those old 8-track cartridges for that device and just sort of get a feel for how they did some things. But in the late 80s, early 90s, I think, Tiger Electronics remade it into an actual robot. So it has head with eyes that blink in time with its speaking. And it was a tape deck in front with multiple choice buttons on it. And it would use a regular cassette tape. I actually might have one around here, believe it or not. I'm notoriously keeping a hold of some of my old stuff that I could use for demoing purposes. So it used things like this. And when you look at the tape on this thing, it looks so thin. But the reading head on this is a left audio, a right audio, and then a left audio and a right audio. And the Tiger Electronics robot had the ability to play side A and side B as if they were a single side. So you'd put it in like this, and it would only start from this side, and it would play what's on the front of this as options 1 and 2, and then the back side would play backwards if you flipped it around, everything would sound like it was backwards. So all on this side, it's using the back side of this tape backwards, playing it through a different channel on the robot on the front. And so you had this neat little technique of getting 4 channels off of a 2-channel, 2-sided object by using both sides at the same time. And that's sort of what we're looking at, approximating. The trick is, with a YouTube video, you don't get 2 sides of the object. So you really only have the left audio channel. The only way to tweak that to get 4 channels was to, I gotta be careful, 4 channels, not 4chan. 4 channels is to do what's called a high frequency, low frequency filter. So basically, when you hear my audio tone right now, you're getting both the high and the low end of my audio. What I'll have to do to get this to work is I will have to record an audio track like this, and then I'm going to have to take it over into Audacity and drop the frequency of one version of it. And so one track, one answer would be recorded like this, dropped in frequency. A different answer would be recorded and raise the frequency so that there's no overlap on the middle range between the two of them. It's a little weird, and I get the distinct impression that even when I do this, you're going to get a very Mickey Mouse meets Barry White kind of situation going on. But if that's what we have to do to get 4 channels of audio to play with, and I guess I'll do that. It certainly increases the capability of what I'm able to do with an interactive video, because 2 channels with like the Space Cadet style of audio game, where it's literally just one headphone in one hand, one in the other, and you raise one and you lower the other when you're listening at a given channel. That's the cheap, easy way to play a 2-channel game. Getting a device that lets you hit one button or the other to get one or the other channel, that's all really cool. The problem comes with the reason Space Cadet works is because I had to spend a lot of time engineering the play on that to be only 2 options, and one of them has to be right, and then the next part of the story cannot be contingent on the results of those 2 choices. Because if you have something where it splits into 2 choices, your next choice has to be from a middle ground to split into 2 choices again. You don't have the option of splitting into 2 and then each of those splitting into 2, because then you need 4 channels. And so, like, being able to open up 4 channels opens up a lot of possibilities. Because if I do split into 2, each of those splits into 2, one of them dead ends, so now you're back on 3, 2 of them merge, so now you have 2 channels again that can split into 4 channels again. You can play with that a little bit more. It gives you a little more flexibility. And I feel like, the compromise of my voice sounding silly on both ends of that spectrum is totally worthwhile if I can get 4 channels out of that. I wish there were a cleaner way to do it. And honestly, YouTube used to have the annotations, and the annotations could very possibly make this sort of game possible again, an audio style multi-choice game possible for the visually impaired, because you could set up the left side of the screen, the right side of the screen, the top of the screen, and the bottom of the screen, and maybe even the middle of the screen for a touch screen device like a tablet or a phone. And you could tell somebody who was listening, okay, so you've got 10 seconds to make your choice. If you make this choice, touch the left side of the screen. If you make this choice, touch the right side of the screen. You used to be able to do that. You can't do that anymore. And that means that my only real option for like the visually impaired or the non-visually oriented games play style can't depend on click at the timestamp 137. You can't, like, they're not going to be able to track it to that point. And there's no way to say, like, click the left-hand side of the screen to take you to 137. There's no way to do that. So my only real option for a game that's playable for audio-only gameplay has to be to split the audio channels, which is actually, in a weird way, is probably a good thing, because this means that it's not just YouTube I can do this for. If I rig up a system that lets me do a 4-channel audio game experience, podcasting, MP3s, you can download it from an Apple store and load it onto a phone. That means that it opens up avenues through which people could play these games. Yeah, I encountered the possibilities of annotations when I was watching a video by somebody else who's covering a very deeply complex issue that different people may have more interest in certain sections of than others. And so at the front of the video, she did a table of contents. So you could skip to the part that was most important to what you were doing or were interested in. And I went, oh, you can insert, choose where you go to in this video tablet. Oh, I could use that for lots of things. And so I started to play with it. And it was literally like 4 months later when they disallowed, the thing that sort of annoys me about it was they said they would stop allowing new videos to have annotations, but the old videos would maintain them. But if you go look at my Faetown Noir, which was uploaded, the very first video I was working on, I got in just before the deadline. It had annotations, and they're gone now. They've disabled the ability for them to exist. So it's ruined its playability now. I have to take that video down and rebuild it from scratch, which is fine. I don't think I did a particularly great job of narrating it. I was kind of in a pissy mood about it at the time. So I'm pretty monotone and just reading it, not really playing it out. But it's now unplayable because it says, which do you choose? And there's no way to choose. And so it's just a bunch of stacked, non-sequential story elements. It just doesn't work. So I'm going to have to pull that down, or at least private it and rework it. Yeah, so that's sort of like, I do want to get back to that one too. The Captain Cosmos role-playing game and the Faetown Noir, I think once I finished the one of each of these types of games, I'll have a sense of how much I can carry forward doing each of them. I think the audio trivia game are probably going to be one of the easier things to do, specifically the 2-channel audio trivia. If I do a 4-channel audio trivia, it's going to be like, it might take twice as long to do them, but they're still possible. And if there's enough interest in them, I'll continue to do them. And maybe that's what I'll end up doing at the end of this year. Because I don't know that I want to try dipping off screen. I don't know that next year I want to do the every week a new project again. This has been a great experience doing it this year. But I got to tell you, it gets to be a lot of work. And the switching categories every week, I think there's just there's a point where I would like to sit down with my my big fantasy universe that I built out of all my story ideas. The I want to call it the multi-universe. That's not what it's called. It was the manifold universe. There you go. The manifold realms. And I want to get back into writing the stories for that and dabble a little bit in my science fiction writing, as well as do some painting. And when I feel like it, maybe make a board game, not do a board game every 2 months. Like by the end of this year, I should have 5 to 6 board games I created. I should have 4 or 5 video games I've created. And I'm going to have these audio games and these role-playing games and these, like, I'm going to have a lot of things that I've produced this year, and I'm really proud of what I've done. But I want to be able to spend a month or two just focusing on, say, my next set of stories for Manifold Realms, or my next sequence of video projects. Because that's the other thing I didn't mention was, for October, November, and December, I've kind of set it up so that I want to do these homage videos, the homage videos. So there are 3 YouTubers that do videos that I regularly watch, and I thought it would be fun to do a video in their style and dedicate them to them, reference people to their videos, and just have a little bit of fun with that. And I kind of want to do some of that next year too. Next year, it's going to be a little bit more focused on, there are a certain number of YouTube channels that I used to watch a lot, and their creators no longer update. Many of them haven't updated in over a year. And I kind of miss their content. So I think it would be kind of fun to be able to go and recreate the things that I liked about their content. Some of them I will do an equivalent of their content, and some of them would be repurposing. So I do think one of the ones that I set up has updated 1 or 2 videos in the last year, and he may not be fully dead, but he's not sort of coming back either. He's not here all the time. So let me see if I can, do I have that file open? Yes, okay. So what we have here is a failure to communicate. No. Okay, so what I was looking at doing is, like, one of the homage videos I want to do is for an artist that I met at VidCon, and I told him he had suggested something in his videos as a joke. Specifically, what he said was, I really like these new pens, or something to these pens or these markers or whatever he was using at the time. I want to find the video clip if I can. And he says, I really like these pens. It's almost like drawing with butter. And then he stops and goes, I don't have any idea what that would be like. Anyway, so he goes on, like, I really enjoyed these markers and they do really good for this, that, and I'm like, but my brain already stopped. It checked out at that point. I was like, I think I can figure out a way to do art with drawing with butter. And it's like a very unique way of doing it. And so when I saw him at VidCon, I'm like, I need to talk to you. You suggested drawing with butter as a joke, and I think I know how to do it. And he goes, well, if you do something with it, let me know. So I thought it would be fun to do my interpretation of one of his usual videos where the project is drawing with butter. And so that's one homage video. Now, I will say that one of the other videos is going to be something like doing a Dear Hank and John Vlogbrothers style video, where it's just sort of sending a message back and forth. And then there's one other homage video that I want to do in October. That one's going to come first. And after that, New Year, we have the possibility of doing a one homage video per month. And so there's a YouTuber that I used to enjoy watching. She hasn't updated in a while, and her name is Vihart, and she used to do these math-based videos, geometry and topology and mathematics, and I really enjoyed her videos. She's not uploading anymore. I don't do math-related content, but if I did a Vihart-inspired book discussion or literature video, I think that would be a kind of a fun project. There was a movie review, a preview review video series that was done by a couple, which I think probably they stopped either because they got hit with copyright for playing the previews, or they broke up. I don't know which is the case. I've only seen there's a link to the girl doing video gaming videos on a different channel. That's all I know. But they used to do a very unique style of review that I think would be really intensely fun to do. And then for board games, there's only one that I have to say stands out as, like, there are probably others that are pretty decent, but Wil Wheaton did Tabletop, and I think it would be a blast to do an homage to Tabletop. And I don't have anything for products. I do have a weird idea for food-related content. I'm sort of waffling on the music. The art, I kind of have an idea for something on there that's semi-inspired by somebody out there. Video games, I haven't really figured out what I'm going to do yet, because I'm not a watcher of video game content very much, so I don't have anybody I would mark out as somebody I feel is missing who used to create content. But for the health and well-being category is the guy I was talking about before who used to update, didn't for a long time. He's posted one or two in the last year. I can't tell if he's back yet. There used to be a YouTuber who used to do these sort of satirical rant videos with simplistic artwork. His name was Grade A Under A. And he's pretty crass, and I actually think some of his stuff is pretty good essays done in a comedic way. And I think it would be a blast to do an homage to that, talking about all the silly, stupid health advice that exists out there with these quacks and these weirdos with their crazy ideas. And I think it would be really fun to just do a ripping satire of a lot of that stuff. So that's sort of like some of the ideas I want to do for some of that stuff. Now, I have a list of my favorite YouTubers who are, some of them are still producing videos, so I would be careful about doing homage videos for them. But I would probably contact them to see if they'd be okay with it. Whereas for the ones I want to do October, November, and December, I should maybe contact them and ask them if they'd be okay with it. But I think what I'm probably going to do is go with the better to ask forgiveness than permission. I'm pretty sure the artist I talked about wouldn't mind terribly much, because when I talked to him about it, he seemed, I didn't tell him I was going to do an homage of his video style, but I think he'd probably be okay with it. The news channel one, maybe not as much, but we'll see. And I think the Vlogbrothers version one probably wouldn't go over too badly. I think that they have enough of a sense of humor that they'd probably be okay with it, as long as I wasn't, infringing on any of their particular copyrights or anything like that. So that's sort of my plan for heading into the new year, is to be a little more loose with the restrictions I give myself every week. Because one of the things I have definitely figured out during this year of doing these is, none of my projects ever really seem to be completely, well, other than the paintings and the visual arts when I did them, and the cooking. Well, I did all right with the product and service too. And I usually got most of the board game worked out. It's just, there are always things that I continue to play with to touch them up after the week is over. And they're just, I've got a stack of 30 some odd projects sitting around in the mostly complete or partially complete phase that I'm not, like, I could fiddle with a little bit more. And just, if I gave myself another week to play with them, I could probably cap them off. But I keep jumping to a new subject on a regular basis. And that's cool because it means that I'm starting new projects. But it would be nice to just finish off a few of them. And I want to try to finish off a few before holiday season. I think what I'm probably going to end up doing for December is sort of recap and analysis of the projects that I worked on, finishing up a few of them. And I think what I want to try to do is set up a means of purchasing products and ideas and things that I made. So like ebooks, plans for the backpack, some of my artwork in prints, stuff like that kind of stuff. I want to set up a location where I can do that. And I want to do it for the start of the new year, not necessarily for the holiday season, but, make it available at that point. And it would probably make more sense to make it available by Christmas, but I don't know that I'll be able to pull it all together in time for that. But we'll see where I go with that from here. I've got, today's Thursday, right? Or it was 8 minutes of Friday here on the East Coast. So I'm going to work on a few of the daytime videos tomorrow. I still want to see by Saturday if I can get a few of these easier trivia games done. And what's next week? This is video games. So next week is health and well-being. I need to prep out to see if that's going to be the end of keto, which I am looking forward to. And the start of fast twitch muscle exercises, probably going to be more like kickboxing and jumping kind of stuff. So that's what's next week. And I need to start prepping for that because I also want to do, next week is also the week where I'm going to be uploading the daytime video for health and well-being, which I want to be the edited version of the exercises I started months ago. I just haven't had the time to sit down and confront the anxiety of editing that thing. Edited videos always take more time. That's why I've really enjoyed doing these as live videos, but not every video is possible that way. So I need to sit down and edit that, and I'm hoping to be able to pull that out by the end of the month. Start a new month with a different approach. That's where I'm going to read the short stories every day for a month. And then November is going to be TV programs, I think. It's going to be like Metal Hurlat, the rest of Black Mirror. I think the two of those are going to basically meet the entire month's need of videos. And then December is recaps of what we've done during the year. So that's sort of where I'm at. Hopefully I have something fun to share tomorrow. Maybe, well, that would take editing. I was going to say maybe I could share bloopers from trying to record the trivia questions. I might be able to, if I get my patter down right, I might be able to do the my game show host impression, my character for that. Can you do it? Yes, that's my character because I'm a smartass. That'll be fun. I just got to remind myself that this is fun, and there's no cost for failure. It's just a little bit of my time playing around with stuff. So I will see you tomorrow. We're running close to an hour tonight, so I should probably go get a little food in me and prep for the rest of the night and tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. I will catch you later. Take care and have a good night. I need closing music, don't I? Theme song.